Gang stalking and group harassment involves covert methodology. It involves just being sneaky. And people have to keep their true identity a secret. But really, they're going to get found out. You are going to figure it out sooner or later. And it's quite revealing. It's kind of funny that these people live with the type of personality that, is basically just a show. I mean, we all have masks, okay? We all have our situational appropriation. But, these people, their whole life is basically an act. Their motives are sinister, and it's quite revealing, actually. And like I said, they're going to get found out sooner or later. We're going to get into some of the methodology that is used in, group harassment, gaslighting, and street theater. What we're going to talk about tonight are some very interesting methods. And, for people who are desperate, and vulnerable like targeted individuals are, sometimes they get sucked in. Because, let's face it, people, who are experiencing group harassment, they're isolated and they're vulnerable. Hell, I've even cornered store clerks before just for a good conversation in the past. It can get lonely out there as a TI. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. But I talked to a neighbor last night. This guy, he's about 70, and he's been around the block. I don't think he considers himself a victim of group harassment, but he is. And he was telling me some stories. It brought back some memories. This guy was telling me a story about how these people were just really nice to him. But he found himself in some very awkward, positions with them. And that's the first one we're going to talk about. I don't even know what to call it. But I know that, there are, a lot of you out there that have experienced this. And it's usually pulled off by a group of people or at least two people. And a couple can be very deadly when it comes to this technique. And it usually involves, just the type of, trickery that you would see in, con artists or gaslighting, to where, people are going to try and pretend like they're your friend, or, they want to invite you over, or, and it's classic. But the thing is, and I know you guys have experienced this, when you get sucked in to this little game, it's different in the sense that in the scenario that he gave, these people, befriended this gentleman, and they invited him on a hike. And he ended up, way out in the middle of the woods with these people. And of course, when they start to show their true colors, guys, and you're, 100 miles from civilization, well, it's a little too late to turn around. And, some of the stuff that the guy told me was pretty scary, but he didn't recognize it. And we were talking about people who, you just had to kind of get away from because something was just odd. And, he gave me several examples of these people. It was real interesting because, he didn't realize what they were doing. And it's almost like a vampire type strategy because, these people will act, very friendly. They will befriend you. They will gain your trust, and then they will get you in a position, maybe a road trip, or you'll be needing them for whatever reason, or they'll make you feel obligated to them, and they'll get you in that awkward situation. In this particular scenario, like I said, they took this guy out in the woods, and then they started acting weird, and then blaming him. because, he just didn't understand or whatever, wasn't grateful for, the kindness that they should. But, it got weird to the point where he actually saw one of these people, peeking into his motel room on one of the excursions. And then, like I said, when they got him out in the middle of the woods, they really started to freak out. And one guy was talking about how he had fantasies of him and everything. And what are you going to do? You're all the way out in the middle of nowhere, and it's classic. I've seen it before. And, what happens is, just like the guy that I'm telling you about, they don't recognize what's going on. I grew up in a family like that. So, I've seen, all these things. And, you guys might have experienced it in family scenarios too, because that group dynamic is always at work. And, like I said, it doesn't have to be just a couple. It can be a group of people. And it's the scapegoat dynamic. And, they basically just kind of have fun with you, right? And everybody is, I don't see anything strange. Some of the stuff the guy was telling me, talking about fantasies, peeking in the guy's window, and it just, real odd social behavior. And you guys know what that is. You've seen some of the unorthodox, just surreal behavior that you're going to get, and then, of course, you're the only one that seems to notice it, right? And you're the oddball at that point because you just don't you're just not catching on. And some of the stuff that this guy was talking about, I'm not going to go into too much of it, but it reminded me of a lot of things that I've experienced. You get on that road trip, and you're in the back seat, and then the people start acting weird. They start talking about things, and and they're talking in code, and oh, nothing, we're not talking about you, and all this weird stuff. But, when it comes down to that kind of technique, it's interesting. The other one that I was going to talk about, you can see this girl looking at her phone. And that's, the subjection to constant harassment. The weirdness of being, a targeted individual in the sense that you are being formed, or your brain is literally being transformed to think about things, process information in a personal way because of the attacks that are coming at you. And not only that, but to anticipate being attacked all the time. So, and that's the funny thing. When people, play this game and they become aware that, they're the focal point of this, hunting expedition, well, they start to kind of process information differently. And I've talked about that before, where people inadvertently, and it's understandable, they start to, anticipate being attacked. They start to, read into things because they're apprehensive. And you have to forgive yourself. But you start to process everything that way, where you inadvertently become self-centered. And then, the end result is much like some of the videos out there that you guys have all probably seen, where you got the targeted individual walking down the street, and every single thing that happens is correlated with him. Doesn't matter what's going on. A cat jumping out from behind a garbage can, whatever. It's all about them. And that's what they want. They want you to be paranoid. They want you to be illogical. They want you to be transformed in your thinking to where you're your own worst enemy. And I'm not saying that it can't happen, because it does happen. But it gets to a level of where you become, pathological in your processing of information. But you have that constant subjection, and it's done methodologically to where you are, whatever. You might be eating dinner, and you're going to have attacks correlated around activities. So it might be bedtime, it might be mealtime, it might be, whatever you want to, try to recharge your brain and your morale, because you're a human being. You need to do that. And they are going to be there to stick their fingers in your pudding and, jerk your chain. And I've talked about that before, where you have targeted individuals, they'll move over to the bathroom and somebody will, bang on a wall or whatever, or you have somebody, doing whatever at certain times of the day during certain activities, or it might be a phone call or a message, at a key time, and, you're wondering, that sure is coincidentally synchronized to something. And all these little games, and I've talked about before where I believe that the spiritual realm is, basically orchestrating these things. I think that we experience our reality in a different time dispensation. I think it's kind of in delay. I don't know. I really don't know that. That's really the best I can get, because I've talked about how I think this stuff is viewed, from a different perspective, from, other, dimensions, if you will. And the people that are in charge, the people that are, the spiritual beings that you're dealing with, they see it, probably a little bit before you do, at the very least, or in some different way. And I think God is sovereign over these things. But at the very least, rather than to, assume that somebody's got, a laser beam pointed at your throat, or, mind technology and some kind of microchip, and they're, getting all this manpower together to choreograph all these events in real time, I don't think it's possible. Hopefully that'll explain some things to some of you guys out there, but that's just what I believe. But you're going to have that. And Aaron came up with a really good idea, and so I'll probably go into another video that kind of goes more in depth in that later. But you're going to have that, numbers and, people you don't even know calling you, and you call back the number, and it's, a fake number or whatever. You're going to have that, odd times of the day or night. They're going to be synchronized. It's just that constant subjection to keep you into that frame of mind to where you're always thinking about, the baloney that's coming at you, man. They want you to be in that mode all the time, and that's gonna affect your psyche in ways that we don't have time to talk about in this video. Well, I just thought I would touch on some of those things. I think the vampire technique is really creepy for just the methodology involved. I had some members of my family asked me once, because I had a drinking problem. Anybody that's been on this channel for very long knows. And they would pay people to harass me, and then I would get drinking, and then they would play this little game where they would all show up and, oh, what are you doing, and they would vent on me, and then, all these little things. And then, once I, got up and going, they would try to knock me down. If they couldn't do it, they'd just leave, right? They would leave me alone. Because really, what they were doing is kind of feeding on me. And they liked it. I didn't hear from them when things were going well. I might try to contact them. It was never interesting. But as soon as I would mess up, as soon as things would go wrong, they'd all be there, and they would be, ready to, and they would call. I'd be going through the alcohol withdrawals or whatever, and the phone would be ringing off the hook. Oh, we just want to talk to you. How are you doing? And all this surreal conversations. And one time I was invited on a camping trip, right? And, here I was shaking, and I probably hadn't slept in 2 weeks. And, oh, yeah, let's go camping. And there was still snow on the ground, man. I mean, it was up in the northern part of the United States, kind of by Canada. I'm like, really? Obviously it wasn't serious. And you get stuff like that, and it's just, you can tell that people, they want to get, they would always do that. They want to get me out. Let's go on a road trip, or, and here you've been awake, your worst possible moment. And, I don't know. That's what I dealt with. And there's other things to the point where I don't know if you guys have dealt with that specifically, but I'm sure you've had to deal with the strange group type scenario where you were the one that was probably the focal point of some type of passive aggressive behavior, unorthodox social interactions, that vampire scenario where you're the only one that seems to notice that something's odd. And it's a game. It's a game. And it gets surreal. Guys, Be good to yourselves. Be safe.